Problem number 29 asks us to factor this trinomial. So we always start the same way. Is there anything common all the way through? All I see is a 1. We don't count those. And there's no p's all the way through. So let's write our two sets of parentheses, anticipating that we can do this. And we're going to start here. We want to get the p squared. The leading coefficient is a 1, so we're going to start with a p and a p. And now what we're doing is we're looking for two numbers that when we multiply together to 56, get 56. When we add them together, we get 10. Now, that 56, I'm going to write it here. Here's that 56. I can get a 56 with a 56 times a 1. Now, here's how I do this. This is even, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this half and double. What I'm trying to do is list all the factors of 56. So I'm going to cut in half and double. Because it's even, I can cut it in half. So I would get 28 and 2. Now, so far, neither of those is going to work, right? 56 and 1, if I add or subtract, I can't get a 10. 28 and 2, if I add, I get 30. If I subtract, I get 26. That doesn't give me the 10. So this is still even, the 28 is. So cut in half and double. 14 and 4. Oh, now this looks good, right? 14 and 4, I can get a 10 out of that. So why don't we try that? So let's go with a 14 and a 4. And now what I see is I got a 14 and a 4, and this is negative. So both these numbers have to have opposite signs. Now, the way I look at this is, all right, one's going to be positive, one's going to be negative. And here's how I determine. I look at this middle term here. That's a positive. So I'm going to put that plus sign with the bigger of these two products. Now, the way I've written mine is this, is that the outer product here is 4p. The inner product is 14p. The 14p is bigger. So I want this plus sign to go with that one. So I'm going to write this as plus 14. I'll put the plus there, the minus here. So now that'll give us, let's just look at it. This will give us negative 4p plus 14 is 10. So I think we've got our factorization. So I'll just rewrite this so it looks pretty good. So I'm going to rewrite this as p plus 14 p minus 4. Now in 31, we've got y squared minus 16y plus 55. I don't see anything common, no common factors all the way through. So let's start here by writing our two sets of parentheses, anticipating we can do this. Let's start with the first and the first, a y and a y. That'll give us the y squared. Now, what I'm looking for here are two numbers that, right here, when I multiply together, I get 55. So let's just look at those possibilities. I'm going to write the 55 here. I can get a 55 and a 1. Now, let's get them all. So I can't divide by 2. I can't divide by 3, but I can divide by 5. If I divide by 5, I'll get 5 and 11. And I think that's all the factors of 55 that we're going to get. And sure enough, with that 5 and 11, if I add them together, I can get a 16. So let's try this. Let's go with 5 and 11. And now, this is a positive 55. So these two numbers have to have the same sign, right? Positive times positive is positive, or negative times negative is positive. As long as this is positive, they have the same sign, and that sign is going to be that middle negative sign. So I'm going to write a negative, negative. I'm going to claim that's the factorization, but I'm going to check it just to be sure. So the first and the first is going to give us y squared. This outer product here is going to give us minus 11y. The inner product here is going to give us negative 5y. And the last, negative 5 times negative 11, that's going to give us plus 55. And sure enough, you add those together, there's our negative 16y. So we've got it. In 33, we're going to see if we can factor this trinomial, t squared plus 4t plus 5. Nothing common all the way through, no common factors. So let's start here by writing our parentheses. Thinking we can do this, we'll get a t and a t. Now a 5. This 5, there's only one way to get a 5, and that's going to be a 5 and a 1. Now, because this 5 is positive, these two numbers have to have the same sign. and that's going to be that plus sign. But here's the problem. If we put a plus here and a plus here, this gives us the t squared, okay? The outer product gives us a plus t, but the inner product here, that gives us a plus 5t, and that's going to give us a 6t. And we're looking back here to get a 4t. So the 5 and the 1, that's the only way we can do this. So there's no other factors that we can use here. So that doesn't work, right? This one doesn't work. And there's nothing else to try. So we're going to say that this polynomial is prime. Let's see if we can factor this trinomial here. Nothing's common all the way through. So let's again start by writing our two sets of parentheses, anticipating we can do this. Now we've got a 1 out here as our leading coefficient, so the only way we're going to get an x squared here is an x and an x. Now, this 45 out here at the end. Let's do this. We want all the factors of 45. Maybe you can see it already, but just in case, 45, we can get 45 and 1. How about 9 and 5? How about 15 and 3? And I think that's all of them. So what about 45 and 1? Now what we're looking for here is a 4. I can't get a 4 out of a 45 and 1. What about a 15 and a 3? That doesn't help. If I add them, I get 18. If I subtract, I get 12. But there's the ones we want. That's the pair we want, 9 and 5. If I subtract, I get a 4. So we're going to use a 9 and a 5. So let's go back here and put a 9 and a 5. And the order doesn't matter. And I notice that this is negative. So these two numbers, 9 and 5, have to have opposite signs. And I'm going to put that negative sign with the bigger of the two products. Now, look at this outer product. That's 5x. The inner product is 9x. This is bigger. So I'm going to put that negative here. I'll get negative 9x, and then plus 5x, sure enough, is the negative 4x. Then I'm going to conclude now that that is the factored form, and you can check it. Let's do that. Just run a real quick check here. X squared, 5x minus 9x, negative 4x, and negative 9 times positive 5, negative 45. We have it.